You're listening to the Men After God podcast, the show dedicated to empowering men to navigate life's challenges through the lens of faith. In this episode, we'll tackle real-world issues that matter, from leadership and personal growth to marriage, fatherhood, and balancing career and family. Join us as we explore insightful conversations and practical advice to help you thrive as a man after God's own heart.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Men After God podcast. We are talking today about maintaining peace during the holiday season. Christmas is just around the corner. You've already got through Thanksgiving, probably did some Black Friday shopping, some Cyber Monday shopping, some Small Business Saturday shopping on some day. And now we're getting into being around the family, getting some time off from work, and having to prepare your heart to celebrate the birth of Jesus with a smile on your face as you deal with everything that comes with your family. And Luke, you come from a big family.
Yeah.
So what was the holidays like at the Sorensen household with this massive family? And you know, do you guys still get together? What does that look like for you guys?
Yeah, I've heard it said that you know, people, some families put the fun in dysfunctional. I'm pretty sure that's where we're at. I come from a large family, number 7 out of 10 kids, mom and dad, and of course they came from large families as well. And so family get-together is a big deal. I think if I look back on the Sorensen family, anything, there's a lot of energy, especially now that there's like 40 some grandkids. So if we do get together, it's like a Baptist church potluck with kids around. It's great. But growing up, we grew up out in the country, and just it was real. Had a great time during Christmas, but it wasn't the whole commercialized. And even though we did the tree and the presents, a lot of what we did was wrapping up our favorite toy and giving it to our sibling, kind of a deal. And my grandpa had worked at Crown and Zeller back, a big paper company, and so we had this huge, like 6-foot roll. Maybe it might have been 4 foot, but when it was small, it felt like 6 foot roll of white paper. And so we would go down there and wrap all of our presents in this white paper. And I don't know how many years this huge roll lasted, but most of our Christmas presents under the tree were random Mod Podge white wrapped presents of things that we'd either created or just wanted to dispose of. It was kind of like so we had a lot of fun during Christmas. And then even now our get-togethers are pretty extensive. Obviously we're kind of spread out over the states, but Christmas was a big deal in our house. In fact, one time we got on this, and everybody has different beliefs. We got on this thing that Christmas was of the devil and you shouldn't have a Christmas tree and stuff. And so one year we just opted to not have Christmas, and that lasted about until December 20th. And then my elder sister was like, no, we're having Christmas. So she went and bought everybody presents and she made Christmas happen. And she's like, we might not have a tree and all that, but we're doing Christmas. And then next year we went back to being, real Baptist. We had a Christmas tree and had a great time.
There you go. Yes. Yeah. Got to be the heathens again. Yeah.
Yes. Right at home.
Yeah.
So
that is awesome. Man, I can't imagine. Like, I know what it's like. I got a family of 3, and we try not to go all out for Christmas. We try to do we try to buy them like 4 things, and of course, family buys them stuff. And all that.
Yeah.
But gifts wise, we'll try to buy them, something they want, something they need, something they'll wear, and something they'll read.
Right.
Like, I can remember that because it rhymes. And so we try to follow that, and that's for 3 kids. So that's 4 gifts apiece. That's 12 gifts. I can't imagine trying to buy 10 gifts. That's 1 per kid for you guys, right? That would have been nuts for your parents. And then if you're trying to help the siblings buy for the other siblings, now you've got that intermix. Like, it gets so crazy just trying to meet cultural norms, if you will, at Christmas time. And along with you're working, you're probably having to tie stuff up at your job because it's the holiday season. It's got to get done before you get out. And you've got vacation time you're taking, or, maybe you don't have vacation time and you're still taking the time off. So there's a financial thing. And of course, everything's on sale. So, you have to buy it. And again, what Dave Ramsey say, you buy stuff you don't need to impress stuff you don't like, impress people you don't like. We run ourselves ragged around Christmas time. One of my favorite movies, Luke, have you ever seen Jingle All the Way?
Oh, I don't think I have. Maybe
with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Okay,
it's
now.
Okay, someone just told me I need to watch this. I haven't seen it, so I haven't watched it.
Okay, so this is a sign. This is the second person to tell you you've got to go watch this movie. It's hilarious. It's him and Sinbad, and I'm not going to ruin it for you. Ultimately, though, this dad's running crazy to get this one gift for his kid, right? And he should have planned sooner. He should have done all this, but it really shows how crazy we can make ourselves around this season, trying to celebrate what happened on Christmas with the coming of Christ. And I mean, you look at some stats that are out there. The American Psychological Association found 69% of people feel stressed by the lack of time during the holidays. And 51% are stressed about the pressure to give or get gifts. Luke, is that something you have ever experienced in your life?
I think I would say yes in short answer and long answer, because that's how I typically answer, especially being a dad.
And that's why we have a podcast.
Yes, yeah, long form, of course. No, I think that especially as a dad, it's one thing when you're a husband and there's a wife, but there's a communication of, hey, your wife typically understands the financial pressure, the whatever's going on, but your kids don't. And even if I wanted them to, I don't want to tell them, right? So there's been several times in my life with kids, since I've had kids, where the need to put something under the tree, let alone on the table, has been difficult. And just that sense of almost like I'm not enough or I'm not good enough if I can't put something under the tree that they want. Like, it's one thing, like my parents a lot of times went to the Black Friday sock sale, and that's where we got most of our Christmas presents. They happen to be white socks. Like, that's what we open in our stockings every year, right? And that was, I think that's great. I don't think that's a bad plan. But sometimes as a dad, even that is a bit much. And I think that we do need to just take a step back to realize that there's a lot of mental anguish that people are going through, to want to be mindful of other people, but also be mindful of yourself in the process, not to be selfish, but to be self-aware of what strain are you putting yourself under to meet the needs and criteria of what somebody else said Christmas is about that isn't in the Bible. Because if you look in the Bible, Christmas is all about peace. The announcement from the angels is peace. He's a prince of peace. All this stuff talks about the peace, and yet we go through Christmas and there's no peace. There's no time in, there's no peace. And just that mindset, just to take the step back and realize that if you're seeking peace, then shopping is probably not on the list of things you're supposed to. And I understand shopping, and I'm not your bank account, but I want to say you've probably overshopped already. So just take a step back, make sure you get your wife a good gift, and go from there. So
yeah, go ahead and get the second job ready to pay off the debt.
Yes. Oh, man.
I love how you bring it from that practical hustle and bustle, lack of peace and time, right, to that inner peace, if you will. And I know we hear that, we think New Age and all these things, but truthfully, Jesus brings us an inner peace. Isaiah 9:6, for to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. He came so that we can have a relationship with him, and through that relationship we can find peace. And I think that's easier said than done. I mean, Luke, you and I both experienced anxiety, depression, different things of that nature over the course of our lives, and many of our listeners have too, guys. And look, it happens, it's part of life. But Max Lucado said, the presence of anxiety is unavoidable, but the prison of anxiety is optional. And I think that is so powerful, because we allow the physical things of this world to bring anxiety to us. Luke, I was just having a discussion with my daughter yesterday, and she was telling me, I asked her how her day was. She said, well, it was a bad day. I was like, well, what made it a bad day? Well, the kids around me were annoying. I'm like, well, people are going to annoy you for the rest of your life. But are you going to allow them to determine if you have a good or bad day? And she's like, well, no. And we talk a little bit, and she still looks up. So what's wrong? She's like, it was a bad day. Why was it a bad day? And she tells me the same thing. I'm like, okay, well, Luke knows where my patience dot is. I'm like, well, now we're done. That was a great conversation. Yeah, exactly. That doesn't exist. So I ended up telling her, like, hey, you're going to read a book, because this is what I do. And she's going to read a book called Best Day Ever by Nathan Glad.
Yes.
And it's this kid who just turned 18 years old. He's got brittle bone disease, and wrote a book about just choosing happiness every day. And like, he's got every reason in the world to not be, but he says, no, I'm going to be. And that's the same choice we have to make when it comes to experiencing the hustle and bustle of Christmas, the anxiety of life, is choosing to find our joy in Christ. And I want to give how I think a great way to do that is, and I'll turn over to Luke to continue the conversation. I tell people all the time, it's not fake it till you make it. Right. That's an unfortunate moniker that's out there. However, you need to do the things a person who has peace does in order to become the person that has peace. You say, well, I don't feel it. Yeah, well, that's called discipline. And you discipline yourself to do things you don't feel, because your emotions are going to follow your actions more often than your actions are going to follow your emotions. And so during this holiday season, if a person of peace is someone who's not going to go shopping at 3 a.m. on Black Friday to buy his wife a pair of boots and a jacket like someone did years ago, then don't do that.
He's not talking about me. I just want to throw that out there. It wasn't me.
It's not him. It was me. And that's a whole other story. So. I'll do it for another day. But let me tell you, there's no peace in Black Friday shopping. These women, I went in there to buy boots and I'm having them thrown at me. Not intentionally. It wasn't someone out of anger, but it was just they were rustling through this and going through it and throwing it everywhere. There's no peace there. Don't do that. That's a bad idea. But you can do the things a person that has peace does, like sit and just enjoy God's creation. Maybe you're at a place where it snows. Bundle up and enjoy the snow. Maybe you're in Florida where it's 70 degrees on Christmas Day. Put your shorts and flip-flops on, go down to the beach, and thank God you're not somewhere it snows. Those are, I think, great ways to handle the anxiety and stuff that can come during the holiday seasons and finding peace. Luke, what's some things that you would do?
Yeah, I'm going to get real spiritual for a second and then go back to me. Philippians 4, 6, and 7 tells us not to be anxious, but in every situation by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, present your request to God, right? So it's not saying that anxiety doesn't happen. It's saying if you really want to not have the anxiety or the lack of peace, and call it whatever you will, whether it be depression, anxiety, grief, stress, all the things that go into that emotional angst, if you would, there's a formula here that, and we look at some stats here. If families who engage in a shared Advent traditions, people that just engage in just doing the traditions of Christmas. I know traditions are silly and we don't want to talk about those. They're 25% or 45% more likely to report a stronger sense of connection and peace. People that literally intentionally not do the shopping and gifting, but do the actual activities of tree decoration, following the story, reading along, doing the devotion, stuff like that. And that's the spiritual side. 25% of people reported that they feel way more peace during Christmas time by focusing on the gratitude aspect of what they're grateful for during Christmas. So I know we just finished Thanksgiving and kind of getting through that season of, hey, being grateful. And then we hit December 1st. It's like, okay, well, now I got to be, comparing what everybody else does for their kids for Christmas. It's an option that we pick up and choose. So I want to say this. I am a huge proponent of you get out of something whatever you put into it, and results follow focus. So if I want peace, and I love the concept of if I want peace, I need to do what people who have peace do and not do what people that don't have peace do. Like that's a pretty simple concept. But if I really want peace, that means I got to start looking for it and searching for it. And the way you're going to find it is actually by looking for it. Meaning that if you're looking for peace in a busy schedule, you're going to have to look around the schedule and figure out, okay, where's the peace? What piece of my schedule do I need to put down to pick up the peace, right? And so I think there's a lot to be said in the fact that Christmas is going to be busy. We're in the holiday season. There's going to be family times and get-togethers and Christmas parties and church events and Christmas cantatas and all the stuff that goes with that. But in the process of that, be aware that peace is not going to be found in that. That's a part of Christmas. It's not a bad part either. It's just be aware of it. So in those moments, be looking for the memories, because your kids are in 5 years, 10 years, your kids are not going to remember the events. They're probably not going to remember the parties. They're not going to remember the presents, unless they're Legos. They might remember Legos. Beyond that, they're not going to remember. But they will remember the quality of time and the memories made. And they're not, and we've talked about this before, you need to schedule those memories, but look for opportunity to make the memory. And sometimes it's in the goofy songs you sing in the car where you're goofing off, and sometimes it's the activity that you're doing, and sometimes it's the mess that you're like, man, this, and the kids are like, man, this is great. We got to live in this mess and not to clean it up for 5 minutes. But look at it. Your kids are not looking for a perfect Christmas. They're looking for your presence, and I'm not talking about the gifts under the tree. They're looking for the presence of you, and for you, you should be looking for the presence of your Holy Father and your Jesus. Like, we look at all of the different things in Christmas and how much we rush by a manger scene and forget the reason the manger scene is there. It's not just that he came, it's what he did to provide a peace. Yeah. So I just think there's an opportunity of what you look, where you focus. So if you got your kids focused on presents, don't expect peace. If you got your kids focused on the presence of God, man, you're gonna find Jesus in many different opportunities around the Christmas season.
I love that one. And a great way to do that is starting December 1st, which if you're listening to this right now, we're a little late on that, but starting December 1st. Yeah, do it, plan it for next year. Put it in your calendar, set a reminder in November. Let's do that. But, taking December 1st through 24th and reading Luke and just going through that. That's always a great way to just enjoy and put a focus on the Lord during that time. Peace is not something that I'm afraid we think peace just happens, right? Like we just like, oh, I'm in a state of peace. It was Tony Evans that said, peace doesn't mean that you will not have problems. Peace means your problems will not have you. Choosing peace during the difficulties, during the problems, during the trials, during the change of job, during the financial issues, during whatever's going on, it's choosing the peace. I went on a cruise this last month and was enjoying time with my family to an extent. I work, really from home. And I'm not around my kids a lot, except for in the afternoons, evenings, right? So I have a lot of alone time. I'm used to that. I enjoy that. That's the type of person that I am. Luke would rather be in a crowd of people and just talking to everybody. I can do that for a period of time. He can do it all day. You may be made that way. But for me, we went on a cruise where I was with my family 24/7, okay? And then not only that, there are literally thousands of people on this cruise ship. Always watching. I felt like I was Mike Wazowski in Monsters.
Always
watching. Yes, like they're always there. Like, okay.
Yes,
and then, so you've got those two things going on in my life. And then all the activities that can be done. My oldest son is looking at the schedule like, we could do this, we could go do that, we need to do this. My others are asking me, can we get ice cream? Can we go here for dinner? Can we go to that pool? Can we go to this slide? Can we do this? And I'm ready to look at them going, you know what, guys? Go do what you want. Be back in the room by 9. I'll see you then. And my wife won't let them run off, and I wouldn't do that. But nonetheless, I'm just sitting there, I'm going nuts and crazy. And that first couple of days was difficult for me. And then after that, I had some time with the Lord. I had some time with my wife. We got to talk, and I had to choose, like, okay, I'm not going to allow this to cause me issues. I have to choose the peace. I have to choose the calm in the middle of the storm. And I would have to choose to walk away sometimes. And it wasn't perfect. I didn't handle it right every time, but it is a choice that you have to make. And being able to recognize what's causing a lack of peace in you during this holiday season can really, really help with that. And then there's ways, again, as we said, do the things that a person that has peace does. Gratitude. Practices of gratitude, write down 3 things you're thankful for every day, and then putting a focus on others. United Health Group said volunteering can lower stress levels and increase feelings of happiness. Go volunteer somewhere and do something with your church, do something in a local homeless shelter, or just wherever you can. And those are great ways to get you and your family doing something for others.
Yeah, on that note, I want to say there's two things to be aware of. One is there's a lot of opportunity to serve during any season, but especially in the holiday season, for any number of ways that you can get involved in something. My hesitation is that I have the desire to serve, but it's easier for me to serve alone than it is to serve with my family or to and it's almost like it's more where I got kids, 7 through 12, and they love to serve. They're just not helpful, right? And it's just part of this process of the memories you make, do it together. So there's 2 togethers I want you to think about. One is do it with your family, do it with your spouse, do something together, do something for somebody else. Find individuals, find a group, find a church. There's so much you can do. Secondly, for those of you a part of a church, do it with your church. Your church is already doing things. Do it as a family with your church, just because you're going to get the benefit of serving with other people that are under the same amount of stress, maybe not the same amount, but they're under the same kinds of stress and just the schedule. Or if you get a chance to serve, and I don't care whether you're serving soup in a soup kitchen or just serving at a cantata or helping guests in, there's just so much to do. And how much more of a blessing can we be during Christmas to help take a load off the many that are doing so much? And so I know the thought process a lot of times is, man, I can't do it all. Well, don't let what you can't do keep you from doing what you can do. And you say, well, my kids are really, really young and they can't do much, or they're babies. Well, guess what? You know who loves babies? Everybody. And if you don't love babies, you got problems. But you know what? You're going to minister to a sweet old lady in church who tremendously needs some baby time. And they don't mind that the baby's sleeping or screaming. It's just a part of they want to be a part of the family environment that you can bring your family to. And for those of you that have grown kids, man, some of the time you can spend as a teenager going out to do things, and a lot of churches do like the gift delivery and helping families out. What a privilege for you to be the one to show your family what Christmas is all about, which isn't us. It isn't presents. It is about Jesus and what he did. And in the process of loving on people, it's a great way to just like, oh, this is what it's all about. I promise if you do something for somebody else intentionally this season with your family, that will be one of the worst or best memories you ever had. Just want to throw it out there. So.
It'll probably be a mixture of the two, right? If Inside Out taught us anything, it's you can have happy memories and sad memories at the same time.
Can't have one without the other. So
no, not at all. Not at all. I love how you brought that around to bringing it with the family, because guys, truly as dads, that is a very important part of our responsibility, is to raise our kids up, nurture and admonition of the Lord, and it's including them in our lives. Pastor Stanley said, your greatest contribution to the kingdom of God may not be something you do, but someone you raise. So how are you raising your children to be followers of Jesus? And maybe you grew up in a dysfunctional home. I did. And you want to break those chains, then you got to do different things. And maybe you need to gather around Christmas Eve and sing carols at home. And you say, like, well, I can't sing. Like, look, that will make it even better, right? Just go enjoy that.
And give your kids the phone to film it so we can make $10,000 off the Funniest Home Video.
Yes,
it's great.
Yes, so, absolutely. Send it into Men After God, and we'll happily use that in our marketing for you, right? But those little things, I know I'm not a big singer or anything, but there's great resources out there. Maybe you're not a creative guy. But listen, I'm afraid that we're making too many excuses as men as to why we don't do things. Well, I'm not creative. I don't know how to come up with a fun evening. Okay, cool. I'm going to give you a couple practical tips right now. Number one, ChatGPT. ChatGPT can be an excellent creative for you. Go in there and put, as a father of children at this age with a wife, what can I do on a fun Christmas or winter evening with my family? And it will literally plan the entire thing for you. So utilize that as a resource. Quit making excuses. And then you can also check out the Adventure Challenge. Fantastic books for you, for couples, and for your family to go and do different things. Some of it's in the house, some of it's out and doing stuff. One thing we did as a family was we went around to claw machines at different places and just let my kids play with the claw. It took $10.
My kids love those. That's so awesome.
My kid's actually good at them. And I don't mean like a soccer parent that's watching their 3-year-old actually kick the ball and go, oh my gosh, it's the next Messi. Like this dude can one out of three, he will get something, right? And I'm being conservative just to not say it's a 50% thing, but like 1 out of 3, he will get something out of that claw machine. And so, that night we came home with a bunch of stuffed animals and that was just a great time. But we got that from the Adventure Challenge book because I'm like, I'm not that creative, but we want to do those things, have fun, and then always bring it back to Christ. Mm-hmm. Go do the claw machine thing. And listen, this is where it's fun. This is where the pastor in me comes out of, trying to make an illustration out of something. But look, that claw machine's got to reach down and grab that and bring it out of its cold, terrible place it's in and put it into a loving family, just like Jesus reached down for us and brought us into his loving family.
That's not how Toy Story sold it. Like, I just want to throw it out there. Like, that's not the message I got from Toy Story. So.
No, Toy Story lied to you, okay? Yeah, okay. Yes. The claw. Oh my gosh. Oh man. But again, these are just those simple little ideas because guys, you're going to get so caught up in trying to make it the perfect Christmas. You're not going to give them the one thing they want, which is you. And you're going to not give them the one thing they need, which is Jesus. That's right. Because it can't be the perfect Christmas without those two things. So don't get so caught up in everything going on that you make it about something it's not supposed to be about or trying to overcomplicate it.
Yeah.
Luke, what's your best Christmas memory? Funny, serious, whatever. Best Christmas memory you've got?
So many of them, but I didn't know you were going to ask this, but I knew you were going to ask it. In my mind, I'd already replied, what is this? And it's actually pretty simple. When I was growing up, large family, but I was one of the younger ones, and so I had older siblings, and older siblings have a way of just kind of dousing the fire sometimes when it comes to the fun. Like they have a bad attitude. But my parents really, really didn't tolerate that. And it was just kind of we were going to do stuff. We were going to do it together. And we had the big homeschool white 15-passenger van. The church, didn't have the church logo, it had the Sorensen logo, right? But we would several times when I was young. I mean, and I think several years in a row, we would just all pile in the van. And we didn't get to take food and drink in the van, but we would get hot chocolate and and some finger food type stuff. And we piled in the van, and Dad would drive us around. And we just looked at Christmas lights, and it wasn't that we'd never seen them before. I mean, to be honest, I'd seen thousands, and we see it every night, right? But it was just the fact we drive around and we listened to the Christmas radio station, or we actually couldn't sing, but we would sing anyway. And it was 15 of us made it, or 12 of us made it great. But that was some of the sweetest memories. It was just the time, and we got to see, and we didn't believe in Santa Claus, so we made fun of the Santa Claus ones, and then we'd see the manger ones, and Mom would be like, oh, there's a really, really cool one, and this is what it's all about. But really, it came down to a quality time thing, and we just, and yeah, there were still drama in the family, and still, someone spilled hot chocolate, it's a mess, and you got to clean it up, and we're out late. But the impact is, what I want to do with my kids? It's Christmas season. Lights are on. We got to go pound the car and drink hot chocolate and only go to Dutch Brothers, right? And just making the memory, it's going to be made in the time that you spend. Understand it's the quality, not the quantity, and understand it's you being intentional about the spirit. Because if you're in a bad mood or Mama's in a bad mood, just don't do it. It's not worth it. Change your attitude, because your attitude's your choice, and then go love on your family the way that Jesus would.
Man, that's so good. That's so good. So mine. I wanted to ask you, because I wanted to ask you first so you could come up with it, so I could sit and think about what I would give as an answer, right? I needed to get it out before you asked me.
You need to change it, like, okay, Dustin, what is your worst Christmas memory?
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So,
what's your best one?
Yeah, no, my best one, man, it is. It's been, as a kid, so the 5 love languages deal, right? Gifts is my least. And what's interesting, I did the expanded test where they go through and do all this other stuff, which is really cool. And guys, I do recommend it. Have fun with it. Yeah. But for me to enjoy a gift, it needs to be practical and extravagant. Right? Like that's just where I'm at, right? Yep. Which anyone who knows me could probably be like, nah, that makes perfect sense, right? I'm not a big fan of simple and little, and like I appreciate a thoughtful, like, hey, I thought of you and bought this little trinket. Like, okay, well, thank you. I really genuinely appreciate it. But if you want to see me like excited over something, it's got to be huge, right? So I'll share this, and then I'll share like my favorite one. For me, gifts and opening gifts with my family growing up, it was always, everybody would get their gift. We'd go to one family member's house. The gifts would get dispersed, and then we would open one at a time. And so everybody could watch you open your gift and see what you'd get. Well, I apparently developed, I don't know if it's a tick, a habit, because I would get gifts, and they would not be bad gifts, but it's just like, it's not extravagant. It's not practical. I'm not like, thank you. And I know everybody's like, he's so ungrateful. Like, hey guys, we're all wired differently. Okay. But I'd get it. And then I would, instead of like smiling and like overjoyed, like, oh, this is amazing, thank you, I'd start yawning, like, oh, this is great, thank you. I'm sorry, I'm just tired, I'm so tired.
That's great.
And so now I have to be very intentional, because around my wife, who knows my little tick there, and now the world does. If I get a gift, it doesn't matter if I'm tired or not. Like, I'm not yawning when I get that gift. And so that's my little Christmas gift story. But favorite Christmas, it's probably as a dad with my kids. Growing up, Christmas was a good time. It was great. It was great with my mom and my stepdad, and I would go to my dad and my stepmom's house, and then there's good memories there. But the ones that impact me the most are the ones with my kids, and seeing them come in to open up their bicycles and get a new bike for Christmas, or they asked for something and we got them exactly what they wanted, and they weren't expecting it. I loved those. Those were the great memories for me. And then COVID. All right, so here's a specific thing. COVID, or the year before COVID, our family got like deathly sick at Christmas time. We didn't even celebrate. We had the gifts, but we were all just so we had to wait a couple days. And when we finally got to feeling better, we all got in the car and we went to a place in Hartford, and we found the Christmas lights, and we started driving through. And it was just one of those, like, we're all awful, but we're awful together, right? We just feel terrible, but we feel terrible together. So those are probably like some of my favorite right there. What I love about both those, Luke, is they're so different. So different, because everybody's story is different. Everybody's Christmas is different. And your Christmas this year may be different than Christmas last year. Your holiday season may be impacted by the loss of a loved one or something of that nature. And I'm sorry that you're dealing with something like that. I can only imagine what that's like. However, you can choose to have peace because of Christ. Luke, I want to throw it over to you to talk about that for a minute, because that actually is your story this year. And so if you'll close this out, just maybe ministering to some of the guys that could be encountering something like that.
Yeah, I don't know what everybody's going through, and I always say this when I'm preaching. I don't know what you're going through, but I do know the one that does know exactly what you're going through. And I'll say this for those that are dealing with, it's a different Christmas this year for some reason, and maybe it's not the first or the second or whatever. You know what I'm talking about? Where this is just a heavy Christmas, and a lot of what you're focusing on is what either what you don't have or who you don't have. And it might be a divorce situation. It might be a death situation. Last Christmas, I went through my first Christmas without my wife, and I'll tell you what, there was a lot of tears and a lot of the just whys and questions. But I will say this: grace, the grace that God gives us, the peace that God gives us, oftentimes it's something we need to be intentional about, but it's not something we pick up and carry into war with us. It's not a tool. It's not a weapon. What it is it's something you fall into. It's something you rely on. It's something you rest in. And the peace and the grace that we can have through Jesus, because when God removes a choice, and for some of you, there's consequences, and you're dealing with the consequences of your choices, but the consequences aren't your choice. And for some of you, someone passed away, they're gone. And whether it's a child, a mom, a dad, a parent, a wife, a son, whoever that is, when God removes the choice in a situation like that, he all the time allows you to rest in his grace. Now, to rest is a choice. To rest in his grace is a choice, meaning it's there for you to rely on, but it comes under the intentionality of, I'm choosing to surrender into his grace and into his peace. And a lot of times, if you're looking for peace during Christmas, especially with the tears, with the grief, the misalignment of what my expectations were and the reality that you're living in, is the opportunity for God to say, I'm still God and I'm still good. And it's for you in a time of tremendous anguish and grief, or whatever you want to call it, to say, God's still good. I might be crying, but don't let my tears distract you. I'm in pain, but that doesn't mean God's not good. It just means that I'm in pain. It just means that I'm remembering, or I'm loving, or I'm holding on to something, or I'm surrendering something. It's part of the process. And so as much as there's joy in Christmas, last Christmas was one of the most joyful Christmases I've ever had. And I don't mean that to brag for those of you that are going through a hard time. It's just I watch my kids look to heaven differently, and look at Jesus differently, and look at Jesus' birth differently. I watched families rally around us, and people that were so generous to their people that should not have been giving us anything were trying to make sure that we had a good Christmas. We had an amazing Christmas. But we had an amazing Christmas because we were not looking at our loss. We were looking at our Savior. And I know that sounds really, really spiritual. It's what we had to do because we had no other choice. That's how you're going to get through this. When you're going through the time, like, man, talk about peace and joy and Christmas. Well, all I have is memories, and now they're sad. No. Those are memories. The love didn't leave. The memories are still there. So savor them a bit while you look to Jesus and just surrender into his grace and peace this Christmas.
That's so good, Luke. All right, guys. Well, listen, I hope you do have an amazing Christmas season. We are going to have a Christmas episode come out. We'll be focusing on the birth of Jesus. It won't be long. It'll probably just be a 15, 20-minute episode, but we want to make sure we stay committed to our schedule there and get that out for you. Just enjoy. Maybe you'll listen to it on Christmas. Maybe listen to it after. That's okay. We just want to put something out to be an encouragement to you on Christmas Day, and hope you get to enjoy the rest of this season. And as we head into 2025, already here, man, comes quick every time. But hey, for those, I pray that I know Luke's testimony there and his and just ministering to you was a blessing. And we hope to talk to you next week.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Men After God podcast. We hope today's discussion has encouraged and equipped you on your journey. We'd love to hear from you. If you have questions, comments, or would like to partner with us, please reach out at support@menaftergod.net. Stay connected with our community by liking our Facebook page at facebook.com/menaftergodpodcast. For deeper engagement, join our group at facebook.com/groups/menaftergod and connect with other men pursuing God's heart. If you found value in this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. Your feedback helps us reach more men striving to live faithfully. Until next time, stay strong in the faith and continue pursuing after God.